April 2nd, 2026. The United States sets out to electronically erase Iran's entire coastal defense network to force open the Strait of Hormuz. EA-18G Growlers, jamming 2 to 18 GHz. AGM-88 HARMs, hunting every radar that dares emit. And USS Tripoli, with 19 F-35Bs and 2,200 Marines, are staged for amphibious operations. 1/5 of global oil supply rested on a 20-minute kill window no one outside the Pentagon fully understands. CENTCOM's official release cataloged the presence of EA-18G Growlers on the flight deck of USS Abraham Lincoln during the opening hours of the operation. Image files labeled 2204022-AB123-001_growler taxi.jpg at 612 Zulu 220402-AB123-014_growler takeoff.jpg at 8:04 Zulu and 220402-N-AB 123-037_growler recovery.jpg at 9:47 Zulu, each marked with the CENTCOM verification stamp, provide a time-stamped record of electronic attack assets committed to the Strait. Squadron markings from VAQ-133 are visible on the vertical stabilizers, confirming the aircraft's assignment to the carrier air wing. The deck cycle captured in these images, taxi, launch, and recovery, demonstrates sustained Growler sorties throughout the critical window. Each jet is configured with a mix of ALQ-99 and NGJ-MB jamming pods, external fuel tanks, and the distinctive 4-missile AGM-88 HARM loadout. These photographs, released with EXYF metadata intact, anchor the operation in physical evidence and dispel any doubt about the scale and readiness of the U.S. electronic warfare presence as the Strait campaign began. USS Tripoli, designated LHA-7, stood out in the operation as a sea-based force multiplier. Outfitted in the Lightning carrier configuration, Tripoli embarked a wing of 19 F-35B, Lightning II aircraft, each tailored for short takeoff and vertical landing. This concentrated 5th-generation air power onto a single amphibious hull, giving commanders the ability to project stealth strike and air superiority across the Strait without relying solely on traditional carrier assets. The F-35Bs operated with a full spectrum of precision, guided munitions, and air-to-air missiles, ready to suppress coastal defenses or intercept threats in contested airspace. Supporting the fighter wing, Tripoli carried both MV-22 and CV-22 tilt-rotor aircraft. The MV-22s provided rapid lift for marine assault elements, while the CV-22s, drawn from Air Force Special Operations, enabled long-range insertion, extraction, and ISR missions deep into the littoral. The embarked 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, numbering around 2,200 Marines, was postured for a range of options, from seizing a coastal foothold to conducting limited raids or humanitarian assistance. The ship's air boss coordinated deck cycles with a focus on sortie generation and asset integration, ensuring F-35Bs, Ospreys, and supporting helicopters could launch and recover in tight windows dictated by the electronic suppression envelope. The result was a flexible, high-density aviation package that broadened the operational reach of the task force and kept amphibious options firmly on the table. At precisely 9 p.m. Eastern Time, the President delivered a televised address outlining the mission's core objectives. His words cut through the uncertainty, and he said, "Tonight, I have ordered the United States Armed Forces to guarantee freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. Our aim is simple: restore the flow of commerce, deter aggression, and prevent further escalation. We will use every tool at our disposal to protect American interests and uphold international law." This mandate provided the legal and political framework for the operation, granting commanders explicit authority to suppress hostile radar and missile threats. Rules of engagement, communicated through classified channels, authorized electronic warfare, and anti-radiation strikes only against positively identified Iranian military emitters, actively targeting coalition forces or commercial shipping. The president's address made clear that the use of force would be disciplined and proportional, and focused solely on restoring maritime security. With these boundaries in place, U.S. assets operated under strict guidance. Jamming and missile launches required positive hostile identification, and all actions were to be coordinated to minimize risk to neutral vessels. The operation's legitimacy rested not just on military might, but on adherence to these publicly stated objectives and carefully defined rules of engagement. On the electromagnetic battlefield above the Strait, the EA-18G Growlers mission began with the activation of its ALQ-218 receivers. These sensors swept the 2 to 18 GHz range, hunting for every radar pulse and emitter signature along the Iranian coast. The Growler's electronic warfare officer, seated behind the pilot, sorted signals in real time, matching each to a threat library built from years of intelligence. Once a hostile radar was detected, the aircraft's jamming pods came online in a synchronized sequence. The legacy ALQ-99 pod unleashed continuous broadband noise, flooding surveillance and fire control frequencies with interference that washed out screens and paralyzed tracking algorithms. In tandem, the next-generation jammer midband, NGJ-MB, pod targeted critical emitters with agile high-power spot jamming, burning through Iranian attempts to retune or frequency hop. When Iranian operators tried to shift bands or mask their radars with deceptive waveforms, the NGJ-MB adapted in microseconds, shifting its beam and modulating power to counter each move. This full-spectrum assault blinded enemy search and targeting radars, severing the kill chain for anti-ship missiles and coastal batteries. All the while, the Growler's cockpit displays updated a live map of emitter locations, ready to cue AGM-88. HARM launches the moment a radar dared to light up again. With every pass, the Growler built and maintained a corridor of electronic silence, clearing the way for Allied ships and aircraft to operate with near impunity. Iranian radar operators along the Strait of Hormuz faced a dilemma as the EA-18G Growlers pressed their attack. With the electromagnetic spectrum blanketed in noise and pinpoint jamming, Iranian coastal radars were forced offline, shutting down in hopes of survival. But the Growler's advantage was time. As soon as the jamming began, a 20-minute countdown started. This window, known among aircrews as the HARM hunt, exploited a predictable cycle. After about 20 minutes, Iranian crews would risk turning their radars back on, attempting to regain situational awareness or cue missile batteries. The Growlers waited for this moment. Each aircraft carried a full load of 4 AGM-88 HARM missiles, programmed to home in on any radar emission that broke the silence. When a radar reappeared, ALQ-218 receivers instantly geolocated the source, and a salvo of HARM missiles launched within seconds. The missiles streaked over the water, locking onto the emitter's frequency and guiding unerringly to their targets. This kinetic follow-through punished any attempt to restore surveillance, ensuring that Iranian air defenses remained blind and their operators understood the cost of even a brief transmission. The result was a rolling suppression chain: jam, wait, strike. It repeated across the coastline, leaving no safe window for enemy radars to operate. The EA-18G Growler's effectiveness hinges on how much technology and firepower it can bring to each mission. Each aircraft is rated for a maximum external payload of about 17,000 pounds, distributed across 9 hardpoints. That total includes everything outside the fuselage: jamming pods, missiles, external fuel tanks, and any sensor pods. Every pound counts. To maintain both range and jamming endurance, crews balance their loadouts carefully. Mounting both the legacy ALQ-99 and the newer NGJ-MB jamming pods means sacrificing some missile or tank capacity. A typical combat sortie for this operation saw 4 AGM-88 HARM missiles paired with 2 jamming pods and 2 external tanks, pushing the airframe close to its operational limit. The 9-station configuration is standard, but the actual mix is always a trade-off between electronic attack, kinetic punch, and staying power over target. Official releases reference these limits in broad terms, but the 17,000-pound figure is not always spelled out on public labels. Instead, technical disclosures use language like combat maximum external load, a deliberate choice that signals both capability and operational discipline. Inference labels on CENTCOM images serve a dual purpose. They inform without revealing classified details, and they reinforce confidence in the Growler's ability to deliver overwhelming electronic effects without overstating what is visible on the ramp. Confusion rippled through Iranian ranks as U.S. Growler jamming blanketed the coast. IRGC spokespersons issued competing statements. One broadcast claimed all American attacks had failed, while another warned of temporary radar outages along the Strait. In internal communications intercepted by Allied SIGINT, coastal commanders demanded clarity from Tehran, reporting gaps in situational awareness and requesting new targeting data. The regime's official news agency urged unity and resistance, yet social media accounts linked to IRGC units hinted at frustration with Central Command. This public contradiction, paired with a sudden drop in coordinated missile launches, revealed a leadership struggling to maintain cohesion under relentless electronic pressure. The psychological impact of spectrum dominance forced hesitation at every level, as no one could guarantee which radar emission might invite a harm strike. Automated Identification System data. From April 2, 2026, records an abrupt surge in merchant traffic through the Strait. More than 20 commercial vessels, flagged from Europe, Asia, and the Gulf, transmitted position updates as they advanced in a loosely formed convoy. AIS signals, which had gone dark during the height of Iranian radar activity, reappeared along a narrow east-west corridor. The timing of these transits aligns with the documented period of sustained EA-18G Growler jamming and anti-radiation strikes. Analysts noted that the merchant ship's courses hugged the designated safe lane, matching U.S. naval advisories. The pattern, simultaneous movement by a diverse fleet, offers behavioral proof that the electronic corridor held, at least temporarily, against remaining undersea and missile threats. Coalition intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance teams fused data from MQ-9 Reapers, MQ-4C Tritons, and Fury XP-4 vertical drones to scan the Strait for submerged threats. Lamprey unmanned underwater vehicles patrolled the seafloor, relaying sonar and magnetic anomalies to the surface network. This layered detection grid identified and tracked hostile unmanned underwater vehicles and mines, enabling rapid neutralization. Despite these precautions, the underwater domain remained unpredictable, demanding constant vigilance from the Joint Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance Cell. Today, United States electronic warfare platforms, EA-18G Growlers with ALQ-218 receivers and NGJ pods, stand as force multipliers, redefining naval dominance. Multi-domain integration suppresses hostile sensors before a missile ever launches. In contested straits, American spectrum supremacy doesn't just open sea lanes, it rewrites the rules of engagement. Your thoughts below.